Do any of you remember the thrill of walking into EB Games as a kid, clutching the cash you just got for your birthday and leaving with a shiny new copy of The Sims? Or flipping through that CD album that everyone had in their car, going through every album to find the perfect So Fresh playlist to play on your road trip? Unfortunately, those tangible moments of ownership are becoming a thing of the past. Today, we've traded physical products for digital subscriptions. The Sims, it's now part of a monthly EA Play subscription. Your music collection, it's now streamed on Spotify or Apple Music. Even dating has a subscription model now. But what does this shift really mean for us, and especially Gen Z? Let's dive into the subscription economy, how it's making us all poorer, and why we'll be paying forever for things that we never actually own. The rise of the subscription model. Subscriptions have infiltrated every single part of our lives, from entertainment to essential services, and the model has shifted from one-time payments to recurring, never-ending payments. Take printers, for example, the machine that we've never been able to perfect, the device that never works when you want it to, seems to be able to sense fear, and despite all that humanity has achieved, we cannot make a reliable printer that just that just prints things when it's supposed to print things. And we're getting off track. HP's Instant Ink program now requires a subscription if you want to print things with the printer that you own. Without it, your printer might refuse to print, which it's probably going to do anyway, even if you've got ink cartridges and paper installed. It can even cap how many pages you print per month, again, on the printer that you own. How did we allow this to happen? You choose a plan based on the amount of pages you expect to print per month, and if you go over that, you're charged. What on God's green earth? Tesla is another company that seems to love blocking you from using a product that you bought. That is when their cars are not exploding and or malfunctioning and trapping people inside the car.
There have been numerous reports of Tesla drivers being trapped in their car.
Also breaking this morning, a Tesla Cybertruck goes up in flames.
New video showing a brand new Tesla catching fire twice in one day.
Updating my car. When your car is updating, you are stuck in your car. And now I'm stuck in my car, literally dripping sweat. And inside my car, it's 103 degrees.
This is a family in Florida whose Tesla caught fire in their garage, which eventually grew and burned down their entire home.
It took over 6,000 gallons of water to extinguish the flames emitted from this Tesla Model S.
Went to get in my car, shut the door, and everything just shut down. Couldn't open windows, I couldn't unlock the doors. I was just trapped.
Turns out they're also locking people out of their own cars, like they did with this guy Mario, who was locked out of his Tesla after the battery died and he didn't have the $26,000 Tesla was demanding for a new battery. This also meant that he couldn't even sell the car because he couldn't get into the car to get the ownership papers that were locked inside the car that he can't access. What? What is going on? What is going on?
So my piece of trash Tesla completely died, and because it died, it's got no battery. Because it's got no batteries and everything's completely dead. This is the complete battery, everything's done. I have to buy a new battery pack, costs like 26 grand. I'm not buying that. I'm not giving them another dime, but it's raining, it's dead. I can't access the inside, so I gotta see if I could take apart the cone. I got someone willing to pay 20 grand, I can't even access the damn ownership. Worst off, they made it so the air conditioning condenser unit dumps all the water on top of the battery, so my battery is full of water, which is why it needs a new one. And now they're saying it's not covered under warranty, even though it started happening during the warranty period. This is why you should never buy a Tesla, people.
So this is insane. I think we can all collectively agree this is nuts. Regardless of what you think of Tesla or Elon, this is this is not good. Having your battery die and then having your car die and lock you out of it because of an oversight in manufacturing that means that the aircon condensing unit dumps all the water onto a battery, which really to me seems like Tesla's fault. The concept that you can be locked out of something that you own and you can't even get into the car or get into the engine without breaking into your own car to fix it or get your papers out of the car, that is insane. This is on top of Tesla introducing subscription-based features in their cars. I don't know why anyone would buy a car where the company can remotely lock you out of your own car for any reason, but that's just me. Even dating apps have adopted this model. Tinder, for instance, offers premium tiers like Tinder Gold, Tinder Plus, and Platinum, costing anywhere from like $19.99 per month all the way up to $499 per month. What? And you'd think absolutely no one is doing that. A decent chunk of their income comes from this tier and it's invite only. And as if the endless subscriptions weren't enough, even sharing the ones you already pay for is now being locked down. Streaming services like Disney Plus and Netflix have started cracking down on account sharing, meaning you can't even split the cost with a mate or watch it across multiple devices unless you pay extra. Some of them are now using GPS and IP tracking to make sure you're in the same house. It's giving Big Brother, but make it petty. This shouldn't be as widely accepted as it it is. So now not only do you have to subscribe to 6 different streaming platforms just to watch your favorite shows, you also have to deal with geo-blocking, password policing. You're effectively being treated like a criminal for watching on your own account at a friend's house, which is why I am very grateful that this video is sponsored by SurfShark. SurfShark is a VPN that gives you actual freedom in your online life. And unlike all of these other services, you can use one Surfshark subscription on unlimited devices. You, your mum, your dog, your fridge, doesn't matter. It also lets you change your virtual location and bypass the geo-blocking on sites like Netflix, Hulu, Disney+. So if you're in Australia and you want to watch the US version of Netflix, no problem. If you want to stream BBC shows from the UK without actually being in the UK, no worries. And not only that, it can help protect you from phishing attempts, tracking, hacking, malware, annoying pop-ups, you name it. So if you're tired of subscription fatigue and being policed over your own accounts and content, Surfshark is kind of like a middle finger to all of that, which is why I love it so dearly. I've been using Surfshark since 2018, I think. And if you use my code BriennePass or the link in my description, you can get 4 months for free on top of whatever plan that you choose. 4 free months on top of your plan is insane. So jump on that. Again, my code BriennePass, put it in at checkout or use the link in my description. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if for whatever reason you don't like it within 30 days, you can get a refund. And thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Gen Z has entered adulthood in an economy where ownership is an elusive concept more than daily reality. And the thing is, I don't think people really pay attention to how much we don't own anymore. In 2024, the average American spent around $118 per month, or just over $1,400 annually, just on subscription services, nothing else. And this is a notable increase from previous years. Meanwhile, housing affordability has plummeted. In 1970, the house price to income ratio in the US was about 2.4x, meaning you could buy a house with around 2.5 years of income. Today, it's over 10x in some parts of America. There is no amount of diligent saving or avoiding avocados on toast that is going to make up for that discrepancy. This is a map of the average income needed to afford a house in each capital city of Australia. And then pair that with the fact that the median income in Australia is around $65,000 per year. You don't have to be a genius to work out that this math doesn't work. And Australia is particularly f***ing weird when you compare it to all of these other countries. This is a graph showing house prices versus per capita income in Australia versus almost all of the developed world, expressed as a ratio. And yeah, this is not good. It's not looking good for us. Speaking of never owning a house, if you'd like to help me save up for a really nice, maybe 4-person tent on 4 square meters of land that I'm renting off a billionaire, consider buying this t-shirt from my clothing brand. And you too can be the biggest slut at the antique store. I don't know why I made this, but I love it. It is ridiculous. There's also a bunch of other really cool stuff over there. I make everything on my site. It's the thing that brings me joy in this world, and it's also the way that I'm able to keep making these videos. So if you see something you like, consider joining. And you could get 20% off everything at my clothing brand if you become a patron at patreon.com/BrienneWorth. There's a bunch of bonus content over there. You get discounts from my clothing brand. And again, it's how I'm able to make these videos. So thank you in advance. So if you're an Aussie and you feel like buying a house is completely out of reach, it's because it is. And this is no accident. It was designed that way through negative gearing and capital gains tax discounts. This allows property investors to deduct losses from their taxable income and benefit from a 50% capital gains tax on properties held for over a year. In effect, this made real estate investing a lot more attractive for wealthy people, increased competition, and drove up house prices artificially. Of course, this only benefits the rich at the expense of everyone else. So if you're not already wealthy, you don't have parents that are willing to help out either by guarantoring a loan or helping you with a deposit, or if you aren't privileged enough to be able to live at home rent-free and save up your money, then tough shit. Compounding the issue, younger Australians are also paying significantly more tax than older generations did at the same age. This is again largely because of tax policies that disproportionately benefited older generations at the expense of younger generations. These tax policies, such as tax-free superannuation income in retirement and refundable franking credits, have led to older generations paying less tax on the same income compared to younger generations. And high-income retirees also benefit from lower tax rates compared to their younger counterparts, largely due to tax-efficient superannuation and investment income advantages. And to top it all off, wage growth has been flatlining longer than your Tamagotchi in 2005, which, mind you actually owned. Now it's just an app that's plagued with intrusive and unskippable ads that you have to wade through just to be able to get to the game. And while the cost of living has skyrocketed, wages, not so much. And for younger generations, this is one of the most frustrating pieces of the puzzle. We're expected to pay subscription prices for everything from housing, entertainment, even software, but we're earning less in real terms than what our parents did. We pay more for everything, we earn less, our money is worth less, the power of our dollar is substantially less than it was, and we own nothing. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. In Australia, real wage growth has barely budged in the past decade, and Gen Z is entering the workforce at a time when full-time jobs are harder to secure and underemployment is higher than ever. The ABS reported that while inflation soared above 7% in 2022, wages only increased about 3%. That essentially means that every year, even while earning a full-time salary, we are getting poorer. And if you'd like to hedge some of that income into an asset that doesn't depreciate, you can't because you can't afford that. And these older generations that are kind of punching down are the same generations that have had every single advantage handed to them. Booming economies, generous tax breaks, free university, affordable housing, and a low cost of living. They effectively climbed up the ladder and then yanked it up behind them so none of us could climb up with them. And then they still have the audacity to turn around and call younger generations lazy and blame our wealth inequality on avocados. Make that make sense. So when people say millennials and Gen Z are just bad with money and we're lazy and we have no work ethic, what they really mean is you didn't win the economic lottery that we did, and they're largely not able to acknowledge that for some reason. Because it is a lot easier to just dunk on everyone younger than you and then convince themselves that we're not working hard despite productivity being higher than ever. Younger generations are working faster, longer, and more efficiently, and the gap between productivity and a typical worker's pay has increased dramatically for decades. In fact, 10 years of huge productivity gains has resulted in a 0% increase in real hourly wages. So all of that extra value, it's not going to workers, it's going straight to the top, to CEOs, to shareholders, to share buybacks, to the ruling class effectively, and that would explain why wealth inequality is so polarized at the moment. The gap between rich and poor has never been bigger. The middle class effectively does not exist in the US anymore, and I'm not even sure if it does in Australia either. Back in the day, you could be a fucking milkman and support an entire family and still have a house. You could have a great life delivering milk. That's not even a job we could have anymore. Today, that would be called unskilled labor, which by the way, doesn't exist. And you would be lucky to afford the smallest room in a 6-person share house 40 minutes out of the city and maybe a bag of home brand cheese on that income. So not only do we own nothing, we have to subscribe to everything. We're locked out of housing and we're bleeding money just to exist at a bare minimum baseline. We are the most productive that any generation has ever been in terms of economic output, but we're also being told we should work harder, and that's where it's all going wrong. We're working more hours, we're taking on side hustles, the gig economy has exploded. We're just not getting paid for it. And across the board, everybody still can't seem to save money. It's not because every single person is all of a sudden irresponsible, it's because the math does not work anymore. And by the way, every single generation has said the younger generations are more lazy, less respectful, they have bad morals, you name it. This is from a newspaper in the 1950s. Many young people were so pampered nowadays that they had forgotten there was such a thing as walking, and they made automatically for the buses. Unless they did something, the future for walking was very poor indeed. This is from a letter in a Town and Country magazine from 1771. Whither are the manly vigour and athletic appearance of our forefathers flown? Can these be their legitimate heirs? Surely no. A race of effeminate, self-admiring, emaciated fribbles can never have descended in a direct line from the heroes of Poitiers and Angkor, whoever the f these guys are. Do you think you're original for calling younger generations not manly enough, too lazy, don't like doing things, want the easy way out? Every single generation in human history has had the exact same complaint. What do you think is more likely, that millennials and Gen Z are just the final exception in a very long line of every single generation dogging on younger generations for being lazy and entitled? Or do you think you're just following the same trend that emaciated fribbles over here has been whinging about since 1771? The conduct of young people in Hull Daily Mail, 1925. We defy anyone who goes about with his eyes open to deny that there is, as never before, an attitude on the part of young folk which is best described as grossly thoughtless, rude, and utterly selfish. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, it does, because the Daily Mail in 2017 said millennials are lazy and think basic tasks are beneath them. A generation with a huge sense of entitlement. It's the same shit. Fucking Aristotle, 4th century BC. They think they know everything and they are quite sure about it. And what's that? Vanity Fair 2014 saying the exact same thing. Their insistence that they are right despite the overwhelming proof that suggests they are not. It's the same thing. Horace, 1st century BC, the beardless youth does not foresee what is useful, squandering his money. Old people have been complaining about young people since we could speak as a species. Because the truth is, millennials especially have been shafted at every angle. Whether it's having the highest student debt because we didn't get free university like older generations, inheriting an economy economy with the highest housing prices, the highest cost of living, wage stagnation, not to mention multiple economic crises at the most critical points in our careers and our most money-making years, the worst job insecurity in a long time, and the introduction of the gig economy, which just made that even worse. We may never be able to retire, let alone have a house to live in that we own. And the entire time, boomers have been on our asses telling us it's our fault while they pull the ladder up behind them and have their boots on our neck. My entire adult life, I have been reading articles and listening to old on the news saying how millennials killed this, millennials aren't doing that, millennials are lazy, millennials are entitled, millennials killed this industry, millennials didn't do this right, millennials are at fault for f***ing everything, when we are the first generation to be worse off than our parents as a direct result of the actions of older generations, the same ones that are calling us lazy. Meanwhile, the cost of living is having a full-blown identity crisis. Rent prices are breaking records, groceries cost more every week, in large part just due to price gouging, not even inflation, although that is also there. Petrol is practically a luxury item. Utilities keep creeping up. Essentials have become luxuries, and luxuries, don't even think about it. Let's not even go there. This isn't just about budgeting smarter, this is about keeping your head above water in a system where the goalposts keep moving. So no, it's not the avocado toast, it's not getting a coffee every now and then. It's a broken system where everything costs more and we're expected to pay for it with wages and income that have not grown meaningfully since flip phones were invented. And all of this reminds me of a pretty wild psychology experiment that kind of broke my brain when I first heard about it. So researchers got pairs of strangers to play Monopoly, but they rigged the game. A coin toss essentially decided who got to be the rich player. If you were rich, you started with double the money, you collected more cash when you passed go, you basically got every advantage handed to you. And the results were, maybe unsurprisingly, absolutely cooked. The rich players started acting differently really fast. They moved their pieces more aggressively for some reason, they took over the board, they started boasting about their wealth. They even ate more of the free snacks. And the poor players just kind of sat there struggling to keep up, as you could imagine. Now you'd think the rich players, knowing it was rigged and knowing it just came down to a coin flip, would realize that it was just down to luck that they won. But this was the mind-blowing part. When the researchers asked why it is that they thought that they won, not one of them talked about the coin flip. Not a single rich player attributed their win to the coin flip. Not a single one acknowledged that they had inbuilt advantages the entire game. They all mentioned their acumen in Monopoly, how competent they were, and the decisions that they made throughout the game as the reasons that they won, which is so obviously nonsense, and it's kind of mind-blowing but painfully familiar. People who benefit from luck or privilege often tend to rewrite the story as if they earned it all based on merit alone. Now zoom out and apply that to an entire society, an entire generation, and you start to see the problem. Because the people at the top genuinely think they climbed the entire mountain by themselves with no help, no advantages, no privilege, no luck of the draw, while the rest of us are out here with no boots, no rope, and just a subscription fee to be allowed to stay on the trail. By the way, this doesn't mean older generations have not worked hard and no one has, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. It is just acknowledging that the playing field was so much more in their advantage than it is for younger generations. So many of them may have worked hard, and I'm not questioning that, but they had every single advantage that we no longer have. So we can work twice as hard and get half as far. That is just a fact. With digital products, ownership is often just a vibe. You think you're buying something, a movie, a game, a book, but you're just getting the license to access it for now. And that access can vanish at any time. You're not buying a product anymore, you're just renting the privilege to access it until the corporation decides that they don't want you to anymore. And there's tons of cases where people lost access to a product or service that they paid for because a service shut down or the licensing changed. It's a harsh reminder that digital products just aren't as permanent as the things that we used to own. In 2023, Ubisoft removed The Crew from digital storefronts and shut down the servers entirely. If you bought that game digitally, it's just gone. Can't even access it in single player mode. You paid for it, but you just don't own it. No refunds though. You click on something that you paid 20 bucks for and it's just no longer there. Cool. Amazon once remotely deleted copies of George Orwell's 1984 from users' Kindles after a licensing issue. Ironically dystopian, right? The irony is painful at this point, and this isn't just about entertainment, it's about control. If your access to books, tools, media, and information can be revoked at any time, do you really own anything at all? Now let's talk about something even sneakier than subscriptions, and that is ecosystem lock-in. This is when companies design their products to only work with their other products. So once you're in with a brand, it's really difficult to get get out without replacing everything. Apple is pretty much the gold standard here. AirPods, Apple Watch, iMessage, they all work beautifully as long as you stay within the Apple ecosystem. Try switching over to Android and all of a sudden your $400 headphones are losing key features. Your texts go green and your smartwatch is just an overpriced bracelet at that point. And this isn't an accident, this is strategy, and it's not just Apple doing it. As I mentioned earlier, Tesla has taken this to a dystopian level. Imagine buying a new car, paying anywhere from I think $50,000 to $80,000 or higher, and then finding out that you can't use features like heated seats, full self-driving, or faster acceleration because they're locked behind a subscription paywall. Imagine being capped at your acceleration in your own car because you're not paying extra for it. That is insane. Even worse, some people have reported losing access to features that they already paid for when the car was resold or updated. So yes, that's correct. The company can remotely disable your car's features. This kind of ecosystem lock-in goes hand in hand with the subscription model. You're not just paying monthly fees, you're being herded into digital enclosures where you have to keep paying just to stay functional. Want to use Photoshop? Monthly fee. You used to be able to own it. Want to access your smart home features? Monthly fee. Want to drive the car that you bought without features randomly disappearing? You guessed it, monthly fee. And this only gets more dystopian and uncomfortable when you start talking about smart homes. Do you want the security footage from your own camera that you own? Gotta pay a subscription. This setup doesn't just nickel and dime people, it creates a system of dependency. It is far less about convenience than it is about control. And once everything is tied to your account, to your cloud, to your subscriptions, they don't even have to come and take your stuff away. They can just turn it off remotely. And the thing is, you can't even opt out of these systems because so many of them are baked into everyday life, into your job, into your social circles, into how you function in modern society. You cannot partake in society now without a phone. Saying that 20 years ago would have been nuts. You can't even order at a lot of restaurants without a phone anymore because they all have QR codes. And once a few people start using it, more follow and then more follow, and then it just becomes standard. Honestly, I don't think it'll be that long before you're paying a subscription to open your front door and having your access cut off if you miss a payment. And right now that sounds like I've got a tinfoil hat on. But keep in mind, every single example I've given in this video would have been unthinkable 20 years ago. It wouldn't be unthinkable 10 years ago. And this pervasive subscription model setup isn't just an economic issue, it's a societal one. It reflects and it reinforces a shift towards control and surveillance. Everyone in the West seems to love to point at China and say, well, at least we don't have a social credit system, like it's some distant dystopia that we have heroically avoided. But here in the West, we've created our own version and we just call it convenience. We happily hand over access to entertainment, essential services, our banking, our healthcare, our privacy, our data, even our own homes. And corporations can revoke that access at any time for any reason. And there's nothing you can really do about it. Enter the rise of buy now, pay later, which, let's be honest, is just regular old debt with better branding and a younger marketing department. Services like Afterpay, Klarna, and ZipPay have all exploded in popularity, especially amongst Gen Z and Millennials. Offering to break up your payments into interest-free chunks sounds really convenient, right? But the catch is always that it's not really free. Buy now, pay later has very quietly become a new form of debt. It's been incredibly normalized very quickly, normalized largely through TikTok hauls and influencer culture. What used to be an occasional splurge is now marketed as a lifestyle. And you're not just buying something, you're subscribing to future stress. In Australia, buy now, pay later surged to over 37% in 2023 alone. And ASIC reported that 1 in 5 users missed a repayment, often leading to late fees and even debt collection. And since these services aren't regulated like credit cards, users don't get the same protections, but they do get the same consequences. And let's be real, people aren't using Afterpay to buy yachts. They're using it for groceries, fuel, dental appointments, essentials that their paycheck no longer covers. A lot of the time, it's less about convenience and more about survival. And just like subscriptions, buy now, pay later isn't solving the issue of affordability, it's actually making it worse. And it's quietly training an entire generation to get used to being in debt just to function. Take Coachella, for example. About 60% of attendees use buy now, pay later payment options to buy their tickets, to buy things like accommodation, or even on-site expenses like food and drink. And people at Coachella have even been saying online that they use Klarna to buy tacos. We're at the stage of capitalism where people are now taking out loans to buy a fucking taco. So where does all this leave us? In a world where convenience has quietly become control, where we are not customers, we're subscribers, renters of our own life. And it's not just music or movies anymore, it's mobility, it's security, and it's even love. We've essentially traded ownership for access, independence for dependency. And while the subscription economy is easier in a lot of ways, it's also locking us into a system that's harder to escape. And the question shouldn't be, how do I budget better? It should be, why should I have to subscribe to exist in the first place? So maybe next time you see a free trial or a $9.99 a month upgrade, take a second, ask yourself, am I buying convenience or am I selling off another piece of my freedom. As always, I love to read your comments and your thoughts on this. Leave them in the comment section below. What do you make of this issue? What do you think the solutions are? My battery is about to die, so I'll see you in the next one.